What's up YouTube? Matter. So I've seen over the past few weeks, months, discussions about the effect critical triggers and should you run them, should you not run them. So what we're going to do is we're going to first off discuss the crit triggers and how they can provide some useful resources, and then we're going to switch over screens and I'll show you a quick breakdown of where this effect crit works, where it doesn't work, and so you know what to use the crits for, what not to use them for. So the first main bonus, well, first things first actually, we'll actually show a crit trigger over here so you can see what they actually do. So the effect crit triggers have got the skill of, at the end of the battle this unit boosted, you can set this card into your soul and choose one of your units that gets power plus 2000. So the first obvious use is you're tucking it into soul. So those that need either specific pieces in soul, with the likes of Kyrie that needs to keep herself in soul, so you want them to put this in soul to help you in the prison matchup. You've got Baron Magnus that needs to hit 15 soul specifically, and Saga who soul blasts 2 every turn. This is really good for them because obviously it's filling up their soul. The other side is obviously the plus 2000. So you do get decks where you're having one column that's constantly going to be a 13 boosted by an 8. So having this crit on the other side or behind the Vanguard does allow into tucking it into soul to make that column hit a 23 magic number. Obviously putting it behind Vanguard does mean the Vanguard's not hit magic numbers because obviously that's 17. But if you can get it on the other rearguard side behind the 10k booster, that's 14, so you hit in magic numbers. It does have potential, but it is obviously, as I said, going to be down to specific matchups. So I shall catch you guys in a bit once I've swapped screens. Alright, as you can see, we are now back on tier list maker. As you can, we've got 4 different tiers. We've got really important, somewhat important, not that important, and not needed at all. So what we're going to do is we are going to then discuss each line and see how important their actual crit triggers are for them. Starting up, we have Celestial. Now, Celestial is very often all about the used to be about the White Wings. With Lyrical 2, it then became Mixed Wings, but neither of them really use the soul whatsoever. And it's normally a 10k boosted line at 8k nowadays, so the new crits really aren't needed for them whatsoever. Baron Magnus, however, is need soul. So having the crits in there to help get that soul a lot quicker is a very important thing. Next one up is Bastian. Now Bastian is all about the grade 3 playstyle, so already 13 boosted by 4 is not magic numbers. But obviously goes to 15, so 19, that's not bad. But then you're going to 21 on the other side, which doesn't make a difference. Plus the fact that Bastian Prime only gives 2k to the front row, so you'd rather be having 15 boosted by 13, which makes 28 already. And Soul Blast wise, you don't use much soul. You got Alden and then Bastian Prime, but he only Soul Blasts Bastian himself. So again, it is another place down the bottom row. Next one is Saga. Now Saga is a Soul Blast 2 every turn to nuke your opponent's front row, gain a crit. So very important on that side. You do also have Trick Moon, which is a 5k booster instead of being magic numbers. But it doesn't make magic numbers when you look at it like so it's boosting 10k grade 2s. So that's already not helping on that side. So I'm going to put her in the somewhat important. Because yes, it's nice, but it's... The Soul's charge is nice, but it doesn't need the 2k. It's not a mandatory part. Next one up is Bruce. Now Bruce is obviously 5 attacks on grade 3, goes up to 6 attacks on grade 4. Soul blasting 5 to get to it, so obviously the extra soul increase is a little bit of niceness. But again, same as Saga, it's not a I need the soul charge. It's a nice bonus to have there, and the 2k again doesn't make too much of a difference. So we are going to pop Brucey Bruce for upside buff Saga. Next up is Clarissa, and Clarissa's a attack through your opponent's units all at once and then gain skills off of that. But the lyrical crit trigger isn't an earnest correct, which is what Clarissa checks for. And we don't use that much soul. So, into the bottom pile you go. Next up is Dragonic Overlord the End. Now he's a restanding Vanguard that doesn't utilise soul that much outside of the Harlem. So, yeah, straight down the bottom again. Eugene. Now Eugene is the good old stuff of Soul Blasting 5, checking top X number of cards equal to opponent's empty rearguard circles, calling the rest. And at that point, if you're calling the crit, you can tug it back into soul again to fund your next Eugene. Especially if you put it behind 10k grade 2, because then you're still hitting the magic numbers out of it. So honestly, I'm going to put him in the somewhat important pile, because the extra soul charge is nice, and the fact of the 4k or the 5k for boosting a 10k grade 2 does not make a difference. Next up is Eva. Now Eva's one of the newer lines from set 5, and she's all about stacking your deck thinning yourself a lot by calling Obsidide from deck, and also stacking your deck based on the number of researches. She doesn't use that much soul again, but Obsidide is a 13k attacker, so having the 2k is nice, but I'm going to pop it in this column here, because the 2k can actually make some differences sometimes. Next up is Felty Rosa. Now Felty Rosa is multi-attacking based on your drive checks because you're calling ghosts from there to the rearguard circle. The issue is it's a ghost enclosed package. So at that point, you want to have your ideal boosters in the back row being Irene and Esther. And you're normally boosting grade 2s at that point, which are 10k bases, so you're hitting the magic numbers. If you've got Ingrid, you put it in front of the Irene anyway, because Irene gains 2k. So all in all, you really don't need the crit for her either. Next one is Flagberg. Now Flagberg is 5 attacks, and lots of power, lots of pressure. But he does use a fair bit of soul. Yes, we have got Inroad in there to put itself to soul, but sometimes that extra little bit of crit trigger going into soul can make a difference. So I am going to pop it again in the not that important section, because it's can be useful, but not to the point of the likes of Eugene, Saga, which are reliant on soul. Next up is Fortier. Now Fortier is literally Overlord Light in the fact of she attacks with the Vanguard, restands herself to gain power, but she's reliant on you having friends rearguards, which obviously playing the crit at that point kind of counterproductive because that's a non-friend unit, so you're then reliant on your grade 2s being friends. So with the fact that, and the fact that you don't actually utilise soul that much in the deck, she very much joins the not needed situation. Next up is Grave equals Zorga. Now Grave equals Zorga's got a lot of improvements from his old version, in the fact of he can Soul Blast 1 to then ditch a card to grab any order you want back to your hand, so obviously giving you consistent Alchemagic. But that's extra Soul Blast costs on top of the Soul Blast costs it already had. And you've then got to think about the facts of you want that soul consistently, but the 2k doesn't make a difference because you've got 10k's boost by 8k's, or you've got Roman Prison Dragon, which is a 5k base. So he does actually sit into this slot. Actually, no, I'm going to bump him up here because obviously soul is a very, very, very important resource for Zorga, otherwise you're not Alchemagicking. And having that every single turn, I think the crits are quite important for Zorga. Next up is Gravidia. Now, Gravidia is sending the meteors to the drop zone to blow up your opponent's units and gain additional effects based on how many meteors you've set on your side. But placing the meteors into the order zone is a soul charge. And you're not normally dropping boosters in the deck anyway, for the fact of you've not got the space because of the meteors. So she very much joins the not needed at all. Now, Greedon is a restanding Vanguard deck by sucking your rear guards into your soul. So, but you do gain additional power on the restand if you've got 10 in soul. So early game crit triggers can help. But when you're mass absorbing your field anyway, it's not too bad. So I think it joins the not that important situation. So we've gone through the stuff that needs soul. Now we'll talk about the deck that needs no soul in Hermine. Now Hermine's is based around being a 0 soul deck, and then gaining skills based on being 0 soul, and then with Hermine herself 0 counterblasts. So a crit trigger that goes to soul really does not help the deck whatsoever. It's literally counterproductive. Next one up is Hex Orb. Now, Hex Orb is all about looking at the top cards of your deck and then stacking accordingly. And for that, she needs Counterblast and Soul Blasts. And with other cards also trading on the Soul Blast as well, she does end up needing Soul resources a little bit. So I'm actually going to pop her into this section. And the fact of you normally got a 13k attacker in your front row boosted by an 8k, so that 2k does make a slight little bit of difference, but not enough to be mass important. Next one is Kyrie. Now Kyrie is a multi-attack deck by bouncing your rear guards back to hand and calling them back down again when she attacks. Combining with that, she needs the specific Kyrie in the soul, and lyrical numbers are whack anyway when you've got 9k grade 2, 7k grade 1s. The crit triggers just help so much in the deck that she desperately needs them. Next up is the Dark States line, the Cross Epic line of Chaos. Now Chaos is for every unique card in your deck, in your soul, sorry, counts towards his 8 requirements, 10 requirements, 13 requirements. It does add up, so you do need to run 4 different crit triggers, which at that point, you are mandatory to run in soul crits. Next up is Lonerol. Now Lonerol is all about singing songs, swinging in, Vanguard crit, Vanguard, guard restrict, restanding rear guards. But doesn't need soul and definitely doesn't need the scalings. So she very much joins the bottom section. Next one up is Magnolia. Now Magnolia is actually quite a soul intensive deck when you think about it. Because you've got Spiritual Body Condensations, you've got Pantheros, and you ideally want to keep the Magnolia in your soul. Yes, you have got Inlet Pulse, but having the extra card does actually help a little bit. So I do feel that it belongs in the not that important section alongside Flagberg. Because it's the same sort of situation as Flagberg. It's nice, but not must-have situation. Next up is Majesty Lord Blaster, which is all about sucking in your Blaster Blade, Blaster Darts into soul to gain power, drives, retires, all that jazz. But it's not really needing the soul for anything once you've sucked the 2 specific cards in. So it's sitting down here. Next up is Maha Nirvana. Now, early game Nirvana, you might say yes, needs the soul for the likes of, if you're using it, Urga, because obviously that's a Soul Blast too. You've also got the Ride Line using a Soul Blast. But outside of that, you've got Esper Idea, which does use Soul Blasts. but it hits magic numbers already on its own. Then you've got Expector, which doesn't use soul and hits magic numbers on its own. So it does honestly belong into the not that importance, because the soul can be useful for certain points when you need it for Esperandia. But if you got to that point, you might be losing anyway, so yeah. Next up is Orpheus Regis. Now this is the other new ride line that came in Festival's collection. And the deck doesn't need soul one bit, is the honest response. You can literally just play without soul and you'll be fine. So, join us actually right down here. And Old Orpheus is literally the exact same of not needing soul. Next up is Phantom Blaster Overlord. Now he's the same sort of situation as Kyrie, of he gets extra skills for having the older version in the soul. But all it is power and a crit. So it's not massive fort, which actually, that does remind me, I'm actually going to move Dragonic Lord the End up by 1. Which would be there for him. Because obviously Dragonic Overlord the End actually gains drive, doesn't lose his drive checks on restands for having Dragonic Overlord in soul. So obviously having the in-soul crits does help you have other targets for soul blasting out for dodging the Seraph Pure Lights. And I'm going to pop Phantom Blaster Dragon Overlord in the exact same row for the exact same reason of just to help counter the Seraph Pure Light matchup. Next up is Roa. And Roa is a very Soul Blast heavy deck because you've got Roa that Soul Blast to swarm tokens, you've got Radliana that Soul Blast to gain the power of the token. Extra Soul is very much useful. So I'm going to pop it on somewhat important row. Well, we've talked about what she counters, we might as well talk about her now, and it's Seraph Pure Light. So Seraph Pure Light is all about imprisoning your opponent's resources. But you're already gaining a 3 soul charge instantly from playing down the prison. So you've already gained your soul that you're going to need for the majority of the game. Only soul that you obviously need to pay past the first few turns is Pure Light Soul Blasting another Seraph Snow. Or a Seraph card as a whole, I should say. So, realistically speaking, it's not that important. I'm going to put it here more for the fact that obviously you've got the likes of Makarite that eats away at soul, you've got Agriluge that eats away at soul, so having the crits there can be a nice situation. Next up is Tamiya. Now Tamiya is all about calling units from your soul when she attacks, and those units themselves then cost soul blasts to use their skills when they're placed. So with Rarami needing soul, I think Tamiya very much joins that exact same row. Next one up is Thegria. Now Thegria is all about soul blasting grades to equal certain grade numbers because of Maple. So you got to soul blast 1s, 2s, 3s, and then add the equivalent grade equal to the sum of the grades you've soul blasted back to your hand. But the crit triggers there are grade 0. So it doesn't actually benefit the deck at all. So she can go in the bottom row. Next one up is Wallister, and Wallister's Soul Blasts, but her Soul Blasts are specific in the forms of Everlasting Sapphire and True Hearted Ruby. She doesn't utilise Soul Blast outside of that, and your 13k rearguards, which are being boosted by triggers more often than not, and their 5ks are so much better than 4ks at that point. So again, not needed at all. And then the final one is Zorga. Now Zorga, unlike his Grave Equals Zorga Grave Equals counterpart, doesn't utilise the soul that much outside of your orders and actually using Shadow Cloaks. But you're able to manipulate that a bit easier in this version, because you're obviously not needing to Soul Blast every turn to do your stuff. So I do feel that Zorga belongs on this row of The soul charge is nice, but not that important. So this is where everything has actually ended up in the end. So obviously, if you're playing the top 4 decks, you very much want the new crates. Anything below that, it becomes, for these 2 rows, it's you can if you want to, more so with these ones, because obviously it does benefit, but not mass important. These ones you can get away with your vanilla crits, and obviously the bottom row, just ignore the new crits whatsoever, you don't need them one bit. But that is going to be it for this video. If you haven't done so already, please do like, comment, subscribe. It very much does help the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye!